we could we could cut down the number of years to build new plants, but as each one was built, we get a better momentum flowing. But the thing is, get it stopped, this shuffling of the waste around. The horrible part is that while we're arguing about accepting foreign waste over here in Utah, the Italians are dumping it in the ocean. 74 shiploads they've dumped into the Mediterranean Sea. They have built ship vessels for a single voyage where they load it up with nuclear waste, take it over the Canary Islands area, and sink it. They don't report any loss of a vessel or anything. They just go and dump it there. The other thing what we're planning to do here in Utah is take all this kind of waste, mix it in with another kind of waste, and mix that in with the soil out here in the west desert area. Plowing it into the ground and deciding then what we're going to do with that when the cleanup time comes. It's still going to be there. You don't dispose of it by mixing it together and burying it in the soil. You make it impossible to get out again. You can't use it in a new type of reactor to recycle it and gain energy from it. Instead, we're wasting all this time moving it around. If we decide now, build more reactors, we'll just leave all this stuff where it is. Don't shuffle it around our country. Don't bring more in from foreign countries. We'll have the plants here using it. That be the source of the fuel that they use to convert to power. Okay, so we got to get some different way of thinking. Somebody's got to say, the heck, let the taxpayers fund it. What's wrong with that?
Okay, can we have as a ground rule for the discussion, since we are talking about short and medium term solutions, that we only employ technologies which are either already in existence or which can reasonably be developed in the next 5 years or something like that, and not technologies which may or may not be there after a long time.
Take a vote. I don't disagree with what you said. Efficiency is a way of achieving all this power, but it has to be legislated. It has to be mandated. It's because it won't happen through grassroots. It just won't happen. That's when I said it won't happen. It hasn't happened. It won't happen unless it's mandated, and that's what I see as impossible. That's what I see as impossible.
You just got one thing you got to existing energy community to battle. That's all.
Okay, we had a hand up here. Yes, sir.
I think science is anthropomorphic, particularly the laws of entropy, but the scientific methodology is the best thing that we can have. I worked at the Intermountain Networking and Scientific Computation Center for 3 years as well. But I think that as the dollar defaults, that it does open up doors for energy efficiency. I'd just like to mention a couple things. James Lovelock is very hypercritical of carbon sequestration. I took a class from a chemical engineer at the U, and he wrote a 400-page, I don't want to say his name, but he wrote a 400-page paper to the DOE talking about future gen. He told me in private that they don't know how to build a plant. It's a waste of money. James Hansen came here last spring. He talked about how the Clinton administration stopped research on fourth-generation nuclear reprocessing 20 years ago, so we're 20 years behind in that technology. However, France is building reprocessing plants now. I think the company's name is Avia. As far as using the scientific methodology to measure the usefulness and reality of renewable energy projects. People don't know that there are a lot of toxic byproducts in the manufacturing of solar panels, boron doping, and that sort of thing. And the amount of energy it takes to make a solar panel is equivalent to how much energy it can produce in its lifetime. I think solar thermal is a far more realistic thing. However, the third world transmission, ad hoc transmission of east and west national grids are so ad hoc that it's very hard to get the solar thermal into the grid system, the downstream grid system. So I think fourth generation nuclear in an impoverished third world nation like this, where if there actually was critical thinking in higher education, this place would be off the grid right now. You know, and Fred Montague, a professor here at this university, has some, you know, he's done these calculations too. And you know, I think you mentioned the professor that's done some calculations on the reality of renewables. James Lovelock has as well. He thinks that wind energy was a way for German manufacturing to revive its industry. The dollar's dying. There are talks, very important talks about how that's going to affect this political situation, the political impetus of a lot of these factions who are competing for these solutions. And it's like nature. Nature is a drunken survival between species for resources and energy. North America is very energy depleted, and there are going to be resource wars. The manufacturing has been gutted, and all we have is a military-industrial complex to steal from other countries. So that's all I wanted to say.
Oh, the military-industrial complex is a lot more than that. Lots more.
Okay.
I'm Neil Mitchell. I'm a chemical engineer and a lawyer, and I just returned from Serbia teaching a comparative environmental law class at the University of Belgrade, comparing the U.S. and the European Union, because Serbia wants to join the Union. And as you can imagine, we spent a lot of time on some of these issues. And I spent a lot of time researching European Union law before I took on the class. And I would urge you, if you want to do something interesting, look at the Eurolex, EUR.lex. It's a website where all the regulations and directives of the European Union are there in 14 different languages, including English, because luckily England joined the European Union. And you can learn a lot, because in some ways the Europeans are really much further along in their discussions than we are in the United States. And in particular, there's a directive of April of last year. I don't have the site in my head, but if you look up Eurolex and cite renewable energy, you'll come up with this. It was about April 19th or something. It's a very thick document, which resolves a lot for Europe, a lot of the questions that we're having here today. And for example, they say they will have between now and 2010 a 20% increase in efficiency of energy. And that's mandated throughout the European Union. At the same time, they say we will have a 20% use of renewable energy between, based on 1990 levels at 2020, and which is different than the United States saying 17%, because we're starting in 2005, so it's a much smaller reduction. At the same time, they say we will have in our automobile fuels, or our transportation fuels, a 10% renewable. That's ethanol and biodiesel and whatever else goes into the car. And then they delegate that to the various countries to figure out how each one is going to get to that point. And at the same time, they provide for trading between the countries, taking into account that some countries have sun, some countries have wind, and some countries have lots of farmland to do bioproducts, and some don't. So there's there's a trading mechanism in that directive for all